Welcome back to Happiness in Progress. I'm your host, Danielle Craig. I'm an Emmy Award winner, former journalist, mom, wife, and just a person looking for more joy in the everyday. This podcast is brought to you by the Mail Tribune. You can check out the Mail Tribune for more podcasts. And I want to welcome you to episode 100. Can you believe we've made it? You guys are going to love this episode because I have included a soundbite from each guest I've had on the show in a quick-paced, motivation-packed episode. At the end of each episode, I ask my guests, what is one tip to finding more joy in the everyday, during the good days, the bad days, and the in-between? I've taken all my guests' answers to that one question and have edited them back to back to back for you. However, especially in my early days, I wasn't always consistent about asking this question. So some of my former guests have sound bites that did not come after my specific question, but it's great advice that I think you will be able to maybe recall from when you listened to it the first time and bring it into your life in a real, helpful, tangible way. While editing this podcast episode, I've just had so much gratitude for the amazing people I've had on the podcast. Each of them really showed up with wisdom, life experience, and a desire to make your life better. I am so thankful to them and their sacrifice of time and willingness to share what they've learned in their lives. Also, you guys, I am so thankful to all of you for being here, downloading, rating, sharing. Every single time you do that, it allows me to keep doing this work. So I absolutely could not do this without you. So I just really, truly want to thank you from the bottom of my heart for being here and for believing in this work. Before we get to the compilation of sound bites, I want to share two things. Number one, I have created a Happiness in Progress Advent calendar for the month of December to help you experience December in a more intentional, service-oriented, mindful, joyful way. Each day, there's a new prompt. You can also follow along on Instagram stories where I'll be providing you with information and tools to complete each day. And I created this whole thing, this Advent calendar, while editing this episode. So a lot of what you hear today ended up as challenges in the Advent calendar. I really think you're going to like it, especially if you're listening now. Also, before we get going, I want to share with you what my answer is to what is the one tip to finding more joy in the everyday, during the good, bad, and in between. My answer is refining your mindset. All of the things we know we can do for more joy, like practicing gratitude or surrounding yourself with a group of supportive friends or self-care, it all comes back to mindset. When you choose gratitude, you are being intentional about your mindset, that you will focus on what you're thankful for. You can choose to understand, believe, and say to yourself that you are lovable right now how you are, and that you can have friends and meaningful relationships. Or when you accept yourself fully, that is all connected to what you choose to think and the words you say to yourself. They have so much power. And I wanted to tell you this first, because as you listen to these different pieces of advice, I hope you go in with this with the mindset that you can do it too. You are capable of doing this. You get to choose what goes into your mind. For those of you dealing with anxiety or depression, I want to say this to you quickly. This episode is for everyone, but to you specifically, I don't want you to think I'm writing off your mental illness by saying you have a choice to change. I am not. Okay. You cannot will your brain chemicals to be different. You can't will it. You can't pray for it. You can pray for it, but you can't pray it away and you can't will it to change. That's a fact. But you do have a choice to call the doctor. You do have a choice to seek professional help. I know it's not as easy as getting one pill or talking to one doctor, and sometimes it takes a long time to find the help that works for you. But my hope is that you can understand there are tools for you too, and by taking the first step, by getting the help you need, you can move forward with a clearer mind as well. And yes, I don't know your specific circumstances. And maybe you have a more strenuous journey than someone else dealing with the exact same mental illness. But my hope for you is that you can just see there is hope. Okay, let's dive in because these voices and this wisdom, it is just amazing. Okay, buckle in. Here we go.
To really learn to let go of my stressors and to accept the fact that I can only tackle one thing at a time and to not feel overwhelmed with those things that once I was forced to let them go because it wasn't in my control. As far as energy goes, I learned, oh my gosh, I could be like this all the time and that would be okay. Like learning to just not be in control, or to learn to not let those things that stress me and give me anxiety control my life.
I'm just learning through time to be confident in my own decision. And when I'm confident in my own decision and I learn what's right for me, then I don't feel that outside pressure. I don't feel that urge to compare to other families. And, well, she has 5 kids. Why can't I? Or she seems to have it together and she has all these kids. Like, why can't I be like that? Instead of going there, I know that I have a unique experience and I have a unique personality, and I'm doing what's best for my family.
Just being grateful for what's been placed in front of you, and never taking anything for granted, because you really don't know what tomorrow's going to bring, unless you take the charge and lead it.
I think that letting go of perfection and expectation, because that will trickle down. It's not something that's physical. Yes, go do something that's hard and see what happens. Go do something that you do not know what the outcome is going to be and see what happens. Challenge yourself and see what happens. So it's not a challenge if you do it knowing that you're going to succeed at it.
Realizing that you are enough right now to be loved. Like, you don't need to do anything in order to be loved. You are worthy of love right now.
Being okay with failure. Like, even my marriage, like our first couple years of marriage wasn't super fun because we took ourselves too seriously. And once we just started like having fun, like enjoying one another's company, now my wife is my best friend. Like most of the time I would rather just hang out with her and just laugh at something together, because we don't take ourselves seriously anymore. And I think that's important, is people are afraid to fail because they're afraid that it ruins their image of themselves. And to me, it's just like, dude, your image probably sucks anyways. Like we all would just rather have pizza, let our bellies hang out, and just be normal, like be okay with that image of yourself. Failure can happen. And so understand that if you do fail at something, it's okay. Learn from it. What did you learn from it? Figure out what the worst case scenario is before you do the next thing. Live with that. Then just do it.
It's a shame that we have this technology that's supposed to be helping us and helping us connect, but in reality, it's pushing us apart. So just lift your head up and look around. And I dare you one weekend to take a digital detox and not to look at your phone for 48 hours and see how your life transforms. It really is a miracle.
Being honest with yourself and having self-awareness, because that will then trickle into everything else. Because if you're really being honest with yourself, you'll know when to reach out for help. And if you're really being honest with yourself, you'll know if what you're doing isn't working. You'll know deep down in your core, like we all have that deep down, like, in your core when what you're doing is right or wrong, right? Like you know it down in your core when something feels right or feels wrong. So I just tell people to just let yourself tap into that and just be honest with yourself.
If you have a goal or if you have anything you want to do, like do it now and don't wait and expect it to be there tomorrow.
Sit down and do what it takes to get to know yourself. I think especially as moms, we are so focused on our kids that we don't stop to think about well, what do I like to eat? What do I like to do for fun? What would I think would be a fun thing to do? If my kids didn't have a say or, whatever, because I think we can forget when we're so focused on them and other things. And I think it's important to just date ourselves a little bit.
To be grateful for what you have. I read a quote, and actually I don't know who it's by, but it was, if thank you was the only prayer I ever prayed, it would be enough. And so I get in these places, and I think because I've dealt with depression and anxiety all growing up and in my adult years, it's easy to kind of find myself sinking back into patterns. And when I feel on those days where I'm feeling like nothing is right, it feels hopeless, all I have to do is sit and think about everything that I'm grateful for. And that might not be my bank account on that certain day. That might not be my marriage on that certain day. But there's always something.
We think that like when my kids behave, then I'll be happy. And that's ridiculous to put that much power in your kids' behavior. Like you have to choose now in yourself that I'm going to enjoy this day. I'm going to enjoy, I'm going to look at the water running out of my tap and say, oh my goodness, thank God I have running water, and look, it's clean and drinkable. It's right here in my hand. Isn't this amazing? Like I'm going to look at my home and say, oh my gosh, I have this shelter. Start to practice today to bring more joy in your life. Practice to just appreciate what you have.
Laughing is a great medicine for life's negativities. If you can find the humor in things, it'll help you get through it.
Change your perspective to change your circumstance. You have to change your perspective. I think if we look at something so negatively, you're only going to get negativity out of it. And I can say that now. At the beginning of losing my son, no, I could not say that. But I think over time, finding purpose in the pain. Like, why did you go through this? What was it for? Because a lot of times we go through stuff, it's not about us. It's not for us. It's to help someone else.
Focus on your progress. Focus on what you can do, what you can control. Focus on what you do have. Like I mentioned earlier, when you can collect the evidence that shows all of those things, that's when you're going to look at your life, your spouse, your relationship, your family, your job differently. When you can focus on what it provides you and what you gain from it, versus our natural tendency to focus on what we don't have, what we can't get, what we can't control. Those things are what we naturally want to focus on, but we can make the habit, that switch, to collect the evidence that really builds us up.
Find the good in every single situation. I know, like, as a foster parent and just in life in general, when you go through certain days, like, there's a lot of hard moments. And I do this on a daily basis, multiple times a day, is, well, this situation seems really hard, and I could go through all of the worst case scenarios, especially with, like, in foster care, there's going to be a lot of bad scenarios that could play out. But instead, in those times, I really remind myself of what the good is, and focus on that, and just kind of shut off the other parts of my brain that are going towards the bad, and then just finding things that make you come alive.
Coming to accept that the next big thing isn't going to make you happy. I think I spent way too much of my life chasing things to create my happiness instead of creating it now.
You always hear people say it could be worse. Mm-hmm. Could be worse. And, you have the times where, again, me, I wake up and I had that day where I woke up and I couldn't see anything, but I was still alive. And again, it took me a long time to get to this point, but I was alive. I still have the use to my hands and my feet and my mind, and my heart is beating. Like it could be worse, because some people don't have that ability. Some people don't, wake up at all, unfortunately. But whatever it is that you may be going through, you're here, you're in your right mind. Life may not be going as well as you want it to, but it could be worse. Life could be worse.
Follow what's in your heart, what feels good. Because to me, it's like you can work on every single thing, but ultimately it's like a direction, right? Follow your heart. If it feels good, that's your way.
To be grateful for whatever experience you're experiencing at the moment. I literally I can feel it. Like my stomach gets tight. I'm stressed out about a client or a bill or whatever it might be. I stop in that moment and be like, whatever this is right now, this is making me stronger. This is making me stronger. Like, I'm going to be better on the offside of this. So just get through it. Like, just power.
Do what you can with what you have now. So make it the best day possible. Every day is different. You don't know what's going to do. So if you look at, and journaling is a nice thing to do daily, because it kind of puts you in touch with yourself. Hey, today's a new day. What can I be grateful for? What's one little thing? Hey, I can be grateful for possibilities. I can be grateful that, hey, what are some possibilities? Hey, what's an opportunity today?
Be with what is and lower the bar. By that I mean,
we think it's happy and good and right. And actually it's just present, and the present is always there. Present is always there for you. So if it's raining, instead of thinking you need to make it stop raining, you can go dance in the rain. It's raining, I think when we stop trying to over control things and have it be our way, we can then show up to be with what is. So I think that's where the joy lives, is in the present moment.
Absolutely.
We know that any proclivity for depression or anxiety gets worse with lack of sleep. We know that cognition slows down. You don't make decisions as accurately or as effectively or as quickly as you once did. You also take higher risks. Even if you know that the odds are against you, you don't care, because the sleep deprivation has such an effect. And of course, physically, we know that reaction time slows by about a third.
I would say be real. And that's kind of hard on social media because we all want to have the perception that we have it all together. And we don't. Most people don't, but that's the hard thing about social media is we think everybody else has it together. So we get down on ourselves, and people want to know that you are just as messy, just as crazy, unorganized. They want to know that you are a real person.
The most important thing parents can do is really inside their own brains, which is to look at a misbehaving child as a child having trouble and needing skills, and not a bad kid.
The moment that we all found out that my mom was killed, all of the petty stuff didn't matter anymore. The walls that we had up with each other as family, the stupid little misunderstandings or stubborn ground we were holding, that was gone. And I wish that I could have found a way to tear those walls down that didn't involve a deep loss.
I would always say to choose joy over fear. Hope. I have a t-shirt that says hope is the only thing stronger than fear.
It is about going from one little moment to the next, and let those be your highlights and forget about the rest of it. Take joy in the little things where you can. And if you can't find them, you got to keep looking.
There's something positive in everything. And even at the time that I was at a low point, I kept telling myself, hey, there's people out there who have it worse off than you. You need to be grateful, because even though you're not where you want to be, you're not where you could be. You're not going backwards. So every day, press to go forwards, even if it's just a few steps, even if it's one step, even if your victory for the day is just getting out of the bed.
Self-care for anyone, whatever that looks like. And especially moms, I feel like we try really hard to take care of everyone around us. If you want to live a happier life, give yourself some time every single day to do something that makes you feel good, that makes you feel pretty, that makes you feel healthy. You will be a better person for the people in your life if you are a better person for yourself.
My husband and I, we live life with the glass half full approach. And we have learned that you don't want to dwell. There's too much happiness in this world. And even in the deepest parts of grief, after losing a child, there are ways to find happiness. And for us, it's ways of honoring, stopping by the NICU where our children lived, dropping off gifts and helping others, or talking to other people that might need help going through grief. We have found a way to kind of, I guess you could say, help others and also honor our children. And that brings us so much happiness. And finding that, life doesn't end. While it may have felt like our life was over after we lost 2 children, when we looked around, life was still continuing for every other person. So we had to find a way to find life.
So if you are stressed, that does transfer over into your child's demeanor. So it is important to show them that you know how to counterbalance that, or, change that up and shift your mood into feeling more peaceful.
I think it is about stopping yourself in these moments that I didn't used to stop myself in. And they are there. You're rolling around on the floor, tickling your kid. And for that 30 seconds before maybe they start crying or screaming, just acknowledging that moment. You have to stop yourself, and you have to do it not only relative to the people around you, but for yourself as well. Like sometimes it's like as simple as you get home and you have a list of things you have to do. And you know what? I sit on my driveway and finish listening to the podcast that I wanted to finish listening to, for 10 minutes. And it's okay.
To find joy in the everyday, I would say just to be present in that day, being active in that day and being positive in that day. And, what can you do with that day? Not, that means not dragging yesterday into it, not worrying about tomorrow, just taking it a day as it comes.
I really think that I feel it for myself, and I see this with so many people, is that the moment that they slow down and they breathe and they connect to what is really most important to them is the moment that they realize that happiness is lived in the day-to-day actions. We do have control over that. I mean, I think that's the thing I just really want to stress is it's so easy, and I hear it so much. I just don't have time. I don't have time. And it's like, but there are so many little choices in your day that you do have control over. And a big part of that is going to be learning to say no to the things that don't really, really matter to you. And that takes being courageous, because that's not what is told to us, right? What's told to us is the more you do, the more you accomplish, the more you acquire, the more you achieve, the more successful and happier you're going to be. And what we know is that is absolutely not the case.
Just accept who you are. In order to be happy in life, I think you have got to learn to be happy with who you are personally. And if you don't, you're the only person that can change that.
Finding things to be grateful for in your day. I mean, I know that's a very easy one, but it's super powerful and easy. So even if you are having a bad day, if you can write down 5 things that you're grateful for, it can really put, a huge perspective on things.
People that are happy don't push down, they pull up and they lift up. And that's what Ophi, that's what my music, that's what we want to do is we want to empower people and tell them, like, dude, life's too short to be putting other people down, to be saying awful things. You'll never, ever, ever regret being kind. So the first thing I would tell them is you got to consider the source. Just remember, like, happy people won't do that to you. So surround yourself with positive people that try to help you improve how you want to.
Just get out there and do stuff with your life, because there are so many people who are dead by your age, by our age, but we are not. And don't let it slip from your mind that that's not a given. It's so easy in life to take this for granted.
Tapping works with the amygdala, sending that calming signal to the amygdala. And if we look at all those issues that you listed, I would propose that behind all those issues, the root cause is stress, is anxiety, is overwhelm. It's that amygdala firing again and again. Now, sometimes you look at things like weight loss, for example, and go, well, what does that have to do with stress? Certainly, food and nutrition play a huge role. But if we look a little further, we find things like, well, people say, I know what I should eat, or I know the foods that is good for me, but I just can't make those good choices. And when do people make those bad choices? More often than not, they make those bad choices when they're stressed, when they're overwhelmed, when they're exhausted at the end of a long day and go, I just need some comfort food right now. When we're in these stress places, we make, for the most part, poor decisions in our lives.
For myself, it's my faith, hands down. Like, I think that without that for myself, going through hard things, going through great things, going through seasons of unknown, seasons where you need guidance, for me, it's definitely my faith that brings me joy, even in times when they're low. Because I know that, like, okay, God's in control, God's got a plan, and I'm just going to stay faithful to that and to him as well. And so that's the source of my joy.
For me, it is hope. It's hope in that tomorrow will be better. It's finding love and beauty in not necessarily another person, but in yourself and in nature, and in believing that even if today totally sucks, that tomorrow is going to be better.
It's actually just what we were talking about. It's being in the moment and being able to appreciate the little wins. It's so easy to get caught up in the overwhelm of all of these little decisions that we have to make throughout the day, and to say we compound the bad stuff. But why don't we compound the good stuff, right?
Yeah.
And take those wins and really, really add on with that. And I'm a big fan of yoga. So that helps me to stay in the moment. And that practice and meditation as well helps me continue to remember to come back to the present and to be right here, right now. Because happiness is not a destination. It's not where you're trying to get to. It's what you're doing with your life and with the choices that you're making in this moment.
People think it's because I'm out of debt that I'm so happy. It's because I actually have control over what is going on with my money. So I know where it's going. I have a plan. I have hope for the future because I know where I'm heading. And because I don't have to manage all of the stress of creditors, it just takes a huge weight off your shoulder. And I think the other huge lesson it taught me, paying off debt, is that there are just some things that are just not worth buying.
You're right.
I'm sorry. It's just not worth buying a trip to wherever if I'm going to be paying interest on it for 5 to 10 years. It's just, it's so not worth it. So I think you learn to appreciate a lot of the simple things of life, and the material items just don't become as important as they used to.
Give yourself time to realize where you are physically and emotionally, and make sure you talk to your doctor if you need something to relieve the anxiety or depression. Just to find some way to get as close to what you once were as possible.
Be willing to do whatever you're doing differently if that's what your current life needs.
I could say a bunch of different things, but to me, honestly, to find joy when times life is hard is God. And without God, I can't find joy. So or family, and whatever I feel that I'm going towards, for me to find joy is to really seeing my people happy, seeing my family happy, my wife. And that's what brings me joy, seeing my kids.
Do you believe that you can speak things into reality? So what you say, think about it this way, your words are your world. So what you say is who you are. So if you're going to be a person of your word and say, hey, I'm going to meet you here at 3:00, but you don't show up. Okay, well, how can you expect somebody to trust you? If you say you're going to do this, there's a lot of talkers out there. And a lot of people that just talk and don't put action behind it. A lot of people that'll put stuff out into reality, but it's not necessarily the right stuff because they're speaking negatively, right? So what you say out your mouth really does matter.
So I had a therapist tell me once, a very wise therapist say, life is not about being happy. Life is about finding peace. The peace that comes from understanding mental wellness, for me, has been a huge rainbow in my sky. It's just been a way that I can appreciate that that sickness and mental illness is a condition that's not my fault, and that being happy is something and that I can do, that I can. That I can accomplish. But feeling peace is what's most important. And there are many ways to do that. But the journey of depression is not something that I'm angry about or sad about. I am actually grateful for it because it's taught me so many lessons, and it's helped me appreciate what it actually means to find peace, because now I have peace.
I love this. It's called the 5-to-1 rule. And I don't know who first said it, but it's that for every one negative, we need 5 positives.
Get excited.
about the simplest of things. Like when you get out of bed, like get out of bed, like be excited about it. Put some perk in your step when you get into, the bathroom to brush your teeth. Be excited about it. It's a new day, and take that excitement into everything that you do. Like create your own buzz, your own little headline, right? And then live it. And I think that when you start your day, not just with intention, but excitement, that channels a lot of positive energy through.
More than anything, you just have to listen to yourself and what you love and make sure that you're finding time to do it. And that can be in any capacity. I mean, I find as much joy on a Sunday just sitting around with my kids, on a picnic blanket on a sunny day as I do getting on stage, taking an auction. So finding the right moments in my life to make sure that I'm spending as much time with my children as I possibly can, but also finding something fulfilling in my career and also finding time to run because I love running.
Yeah,
that's my perfect sort of joy triangle right there.
Do what you love for sure, and make sure that if you've chosen either a profession or sport or working with a nonprofit that you don't like, do something different.
Fundamentally, it's about mindfulness. It's about paying attention to the present moment.
Yeah. Easier said than done.
Easier said than done. But if you, my experience is that when I'm not paying attention to the present moment, I'm caught up in my thoughts. And my five senses are always there. So it's always possible for me to look with a little bit more intention, to listen with a little bit more intention, to feel my sensations or smells or tastes with a little bit more intention.
There's a direct correlation with doubts and sadness and certainty and happiness. So what does that mean to have certainty? People have certainty that this job, I'm certain this job is for me, or I'm certain that this person's my soulmate. That's not the certainty we're talking about. We're talking about a person every day should have certainty that every single thing that comes to them is for their higher good and ultimately will lead to a higher level of happiness. So everything is for the good. And this certainty is the only way to achieve true happiness that comes from within. And anytime we have doubts or worries about the future, immediately we're connected to sadness. Immediately we feel like that life force leaving us. So what I always help my students understand is no matter what's happening to you, no matter how painful the challenge, no matter how painful the situation, you can feel that pain, but you also must have certainty this pain is good.
Find your purpose and pursue it, but you have to have God on your side in order to do it.
Do something just for you every day. I think it's very easy as women to worry so much about the people we are caring for in our lives that we forget to care for ourselves. I am as guilty of that as anybody else. The day will end and I'll realize that the one thing I really wanted to do was go for that jog and I didn't do it. Mm-hmm. So I think despite whatever schedule you have, setting aside 15 or 20 minutes to do one thing that you are doing just because you love it is important, because eventually it becomes a habit. And eventually that habit creates a mind change.
We don't have to look outside ourselves for joy or happiness, that everything that you need is already within you. And it's just up to us to be able to sit with be in stillness, because it was hard for me to be still, and just pause and look within. And we all have just an infinite well of resource of resilience within us, and we can tap into that and thrive.
For me, it's friends, for sure. People. I have to lean on people to help me, get through and find joy and laugh.
You have to find that space where you love yourself and where you're okay with who you are, because you know what? It really doesn't matter what anybody else thinks about you.
Mm-hmm.
you're you, and you need to just embrace it, be who you are.
Being really connected with who you are, meaning what is it that you want to do with this single remarkable life you have, and letting that be your guide. That is through years of experience, decades of life, that comes to me.
Perseverance. We all get these setbacks in life, and I call them these detours. I write about it in my book, and how even though a place seems familiar in a detour, if the weather and the climate is different, it's going to look different. And how the choices that you're making, even though they feel right at the time, when you're off your element, it may not feel the same. And so just really trusting yourself through these detours of life, and to really know that, we all experience it, whether we want to talk about it or not.
Answer that ultimate question. Once you do, everything is then connected to that. How would you like to be remembered? And then every action you take is so joyous because it has that ultimate built in.
Recognizing that the serious things that require serious thought aren't actually as much of our time as we think they are. Mm-hmm. So when I was going through chemotherapy and all of the rest of it, I had maybe like 12 hard conversations that totaled perhaps 12 hours. The 5-minute really intense conversation with the doctor about this, and then the 3 minutes, and then the 15 minutes, and then and like, so that of course all of those conversations are hard, and I needed to be present for them, and I needed to be serious, and I needed to have my thinking cap on. But then basically the rest of the time you're waiting for the medicine to work, or you're waiting in a waiting room, or you're waiting somewhere else, or, you're just living life. Right. And so putting serious in the conversations where it belongs and taking serious out of the conversations where it doesn't belong, is my best advice.
Be alive while you're alive. So every day, I used to walk, if not every day, run every day. And I used to, I'd walk with friends or walk by myself, and I'd have to remind myself, hey, don't just look down. Look up, look at these beautiful mountains around me. Look at the sky, look around. And my mother used to always say, did you hear that bird? Oh. She was always like, oh, look at that flower. My mom was always about, try to see the beauty or listen to that music around you. And so that's how I think we find joy. I know there's a big movement in being present and not being caught in the future and the past, but literally while you're alive, which every day we have, is be aware of what you're smelling, be aware of what you're seeing, be aware of the love that's around you, be aware of your dreams, and enjoy this day, because there is always something beautiful around us. It's just sometimes retraining ourselves to see that and look at that and cherish that.
In the industry that I'm in with different, writers and influencers and people, like a lot of times you can see people doing things that you're not doing. And that can be hard. Like right now I have this is kind of bringing it back to Disney. Right now I have some friends who are finding out about like, oh, who's going to this Disney conference next year that's like invite only, or whatever. And I did not get an invitation this year, but I was not upset about it. Like, I was just like, man, but I got to go last year, and I was able to make enough this year where I can take my family on a cruise for Thanksgiving, and we are getting our Disney fun, like, on that. And another way, I just immediately went to gratitude, and that helped me through that.
My number one tip to find joy always comes back and is always anchored in experiencing grace for life through Jesus Christ. I will be honest with you, through everything that's gone on, and anytime that I have to answer the question, because people always come up with this great faith-filled question, well, what if you lose everything? Just don't you like having positive, encouraging people around you? So what do you do if you lose everything? I say the same thing I did when I had nothing, the same thing I did when I had everything will be the same thing I do when I lose it all. I'm going to serve Jesus Christ to the best of my ability, and I'm going to experience grace for life through him.
No, I 100% agree. I think that,
money comes, money goes. You're going to have people that tell you money's good. You're going to have people tell you money's bad. The reality is we have more options than we've ever had. We have bigger dreams, bigger hopes. We have the ability to give in a capacity we've never been able to give before. And we have the ability to have fun and enjoy ourselves. But if all that was taken away, the joy that we still had 5 years ago, not knowing how things were going to shake out, but having the confidence that no matter what, like God's faithfulness still reigns true in our life.
Radical acceptance and gratitude. Radical acceptance is, I just talked about radical self-acceptance. Radical acceptance is understanding that life has amazing things in it, and it also has a lot of terrible things in it. There's a lot of pain in life, and there's a lot of joy also if you allow it to be there. And with pain, we can experience joy. With suffering, we cannot. And suffering is when we reject. So when we radically accept, we can allow pain to be there while experiencing joy.
Again, I want to say thank you, thank you, thank you. Should I say thank you 100 times? Maybe. I just want to thank all of you for being here. Thank you for downloading. Thank you for sharing and rating this podcast. All of today's guests were listed in order of how they fell in the podcast episode, so you can easily go back to find your favorite and listen to more. Remember, if you want to be part of the Advent calendar, there is a link in show notes. Find me on Instagram to play along. And I want to, again, thank you for being here on Happiness in Progress.